You are listening to Sex Afflictions and Porn Addictions. I am your host, Craig Pera, from the website www.themindfulhabit.com. This is your path to freedom, healthy sexuality, and a great life. So glad that you are here, and of course, sorry that you are struggling. And today I have an awesomely self-serving podcast with my guest, George Morning. He and I have been brothers for 7 years. He came to me as a client, divorced because of his compulsive sexual behavior, porn, sex, drugs, the whole 9 yards. And now he's a certified mindful habit coach, a master's, a social work candidate. Proud to have him on the team. I call him a fire-breathing dragon. Welcome, George.
Welcome, brother. Thank you for having me here, man.
Well, I'm glad you're here. So what are we talking about today?
All right, brother, we're going to jump into it. We're going to talk about the 10 reasons why you need a coach to help you with your sex and porn addiction. We're going to do a couple shameless plugs today.
Yes, sir. Bring it. Let's do it.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into it, guys. Reason number one is that simply you need to break the addiction. The reality is this: if you could have done it on your own by yourself, you would not be on this call. You wouldn't be on the podcast. You wouldn't have seen this video or anything along those lines. You would have gotten it handled, but you didn't. You need an accountability person with you, a coach, to help you break this, because you can't do it alone.
Yeah, too many blind spots, guys, and it is the mark of a smart man to get help. Listen, when you are out in business and you realize that you have this problem that you don't have the experience to solve, you would be considered foolish for not reaching out to the experts. If you had resources to get the right people in the job to help you move your company forward quickly in an aggressive way, in a way that isn't going to suck the life out of resources. There are simply too many blind spots that you have. Your way got you here. And let me say, we're joking, a self-serving podcast. I don't care who you hire. I don't care who you work with. I just find somebody that you connect with that's going to help you stop numbing, coping, and escaping and wasting your life away addicted to pornography. Number two, George.
Number two, listen, guys, as your coach, and more specifically as your recovery coach, we've literally been there. When you connect with us, guys, the reality is that when you connect with someone who can share their life with you, and you find a commonality between the two stories, you hear that, wow, you're in the same space I'm in, or you were in that space, or you was in a worse space. You know what this situation, this feeling is like. You get that from working with the recovery coach, guys. We're sharing with you the lessons that we've learned. We're sharing with you our pitfalls. More importantly, guys, look, you can't bullshit us and gaslight us. You can't give us the same story that you run circles with around your spouse or around your friends or around your family, your coworkers, about how not bad this addiction is in your life, guys. And of course, you got to be a part of a tribe. Listen, it's not so much about you wanting to hook up with the coach. You want to hook up with a coach that has people around them that are a product of what they have done. So when you join a program, you're not just listening to the guy that's talking. You're able to look around and see other examples of how that coach helped other people. It's like joining an NBA championship team or an NFL team. You really don't care too much about Popovich or care about Belichick. You care about the fact that their teams have produced championships, which means that the players on the team, those that he coached, got the rings. That's what's most important, guys.
Yeah, there's an expression in our world, guys, that has a lot of science backing up, and it is the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. And when studied, why does 12-step work for most people? And this is what I believe the science says. It's not the steps themselves. When that model does work for people, it is the connections that people make in those meetings. Take it away, George. Keep going.
Number three, guys, let's be real about this, guys. Templates just don't work for everyone. There's a group of people out here that can go online, say, I need help in this, find a step-by-step automated program, And that's what does it for them. And I'm willing to bet if you're on this call or listen to this podcast right now, you did that. You tried it and you realize that, you know what? This template as given to me doesn't work. And here's the deal. Craig talked about this earlier. It doesn't matter who you work with. Whether you work with us, NoFap, some other company, doesn't matter. The reality is, guys, is that you need to work with somebody who will be able to customize it to how you are needed to be approached. That's what happens in coaching. We get to understand your comfort areas, where to push you in your discomfort areas. And again, it's not some step-by-step automated piece, because we get a chance to get real and to get personal with you.
Yeah, no, that's such an important point. Not every program is for everybody. And in fact, in what I've learned in marketing and marketing services that help people at their lowest points and trying to do it and be successful, I believe, in doing it in an ethical way, in an honest way. When I first started, I appealed to everybody. I wouldn't curse. I wanted to cast the biggest net. And I couldn't understand why I got great results with Johnny and Steve, like, didn't connect at all with the program. And it was like, what are we doing? Didn't even make sense to him. And that's because they didn't connect. You know, Steve didn't connect. Johnny did. And so, you know, find that person that you connect with, that inspires you, that moves you, that makes you feel good, and that can tailor whatever they teach to you in a way that brings results. Number four,
brother, listen, you need a coach just to complete the program. Listen, guys, here's what you don't understand about completing a program and why it's not about how on your own you're able to get to a certain point, and that's okay. Craig, how often do we see this with the work that we do here? How somebody will get to right around, you know, that voice dialogue stage or the hard history part, and they just start falling off. And what you're missing besides the lessons learned in completing the program is that you don't understand that completion is just a goal. We want to help you accomplish a goal. The reality is you need that sense of accomplishment to further your recovery work. And completing the program is not so much the biggest thing as much as it's just a keystone habit or goal of yours that helps move you to the next space. A lot of times you get so fixated on saying, well, I learned a lot so far from this program here, and you think I can stop here. You're missing the bigger objective. We don't want you to complete the program so much in saying that, hey, look what I got, and I did the Mindful Habit program. It's a fucking goal for you. And how often are you going to look around in your life and say, look, I have a sense of accomplishment because I started something and I completed something that made me healthier in the process. You got to learn how to stick with something and build a habit around that completion.
So true. And George, that space, what's interesting now that the self-study program is getting more and more popular, and the self-study program is no coaching. And what's interesting is the drop-off where we see people fade. It's literally in the same place as it is in the group coaching program. So what people do in the group coaching program, boom, they hit that awareness phase like nobody's business. They accomplish things that they never dreamed of accomplishing. And they can't believe that they're creating these results in their lives and this level of awakening so fast. And it feels like they've done so much. And they have. The problem is with awareness alone, without the accountability, without the action, without the system that you need to install in your life to help you create great habits over a long period of time, that piece is missing. And it's not just about completing the program, it's completing the program in a way that you can take these tools and use them to build a great life. Such an important concept. Thank you, George, for that one. Let's hit number 5. This one's important.
Number 5, brother. Create and rebuild healthy relationships. You know, Craig talked about this a little while ago, but the reality is the number one thing that gets most damage with any compulsive behavior, I don't care, we're looking at it, everything from an alcoholic to a workaholic, is that you damage the connections around you. And here's the deal about it, guys. Some of these connections, you're trying to figure out how to heal or trying to get back into a particular place, when the reality is that was just at a space where your behavior was more hidden. So you felt like you had more of a connection. You need to be able to get with a coach to help you understand How do I now have transparent, healthy communication around the ones that are most important to me? How do I begin to actually have real, transparent communication, which, by the way, I say is the number one opportunity you'll come out of this program with by if you're in a marriage or in a long-term relationship, that you will learn how to communicate with your partner in a way that you never have before. But the reality is that it's even deeper than that, because the truth is that you never connected really with yourself. As much as you can look and say all these connections I've damaged around me, your spouse, your family, friends, coworkers. The real truth is that you haven't really formed a real connection with you. That's why you're watching porn. That's why you're doing whatever you're doing. That's why you're in one relationship to the next relationship, or thinking that the next relationship is going to be the piece that solves it for you. That's not it at all, guys. Come here. You need to work with someone to help you know what it's like to create and build these healthy relationships and connections.
The opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it is connection. Such an important point. And George, you're totally right. That is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, results, which is powerful relationships where you feel heard and your needs get met in a healthy, constructive way. And you are able, this is one of the hardest things. This is hard for guys who kick ass in the program. And some of you guys listening, you know who I'm talking to. And it's to stand in your truth, to be honest with your partner of what upsets you, what hurts you, what makes you feel less than. When you've done all these mistakes and you've done all these bad things, I better keep my mouth shut. No, keeping your mouth shut is what brought you here. Not honoring your truth, not speaking it, keeping it in, stuffing it down, resentment growing, act out. Lies, secrets, all connected. What's number 6, George?
Number 6, brother, declutter your life. You know, one of the things I often think about is that when I first talked with Craig in the summer of 2012, I didn't have enough time. I didn't have enough money. I didn't. It was always an excuse that I had. And then fast forward a year to the summer of 2013, after I'm homeless, I've lost pretty much 99% of my belongings. Literally just got clothes in my back and in the bag, and it's just me, my dog, and my son. And I began coaching with Craig then. While I don't want anybody to have to lose their home and their family in order for you to find space to seek help, what is important out of that is that I realize how much I let occupy my life to take away from the main thing. I kept trying to do so many things that I thought was helping me avoid the main, but it was helping me with my main problem, but it was really helping me to avoid the main work. The main work was that I needed to work on myself. And instead, listen, I'm a Christian, so let me put that out there right now. But I threw myself into every ministry that the church had. I threw myself into every relationship that I had. I threw myself more into work. I threw myself more into my, and I'm doing air quotes right now, family, if you will, at least in terms of the time that was spent. And the more I looked up, I was like, look, if I keep myself this occupied, I won't have time for the behavior. But guys, it's not about that. This behavior will find a way to come out if you don't properly address your triggers, your thoughts, and manage your actions and resolve your unmet needs in a healthy way. And when I had to get my life decluttered, which for me meant that my wife left with my kids, that meant that I didn't have a home, it meant that my job was in flux and the whole nine, but it doesn't have to mean that for you. For you, it can simply mean, what are some of the extra bulk in my life that I need to carve out to create this time? Because guess what? As much as you may struggle to create the time to do the work for you, the behavior you're trying to fight always makes time. I want you to think about that. Don't ever stop thinking that you don't have the time. Think about how the fact that your behavior you're trying to fight always makes time. It will snatch 20 minutes of your thought. It will snatch 20 minutes from your lunch break. It will snatch 30 minutes in your sleep time. It will snatch and occupy you as you're trying to engage in what you think is healthy, loving activities with your family and for your body. It will find a way to occupy you and take that time. Let us work with you and figure out where we can cut away some of that crazy bulk in your life so that you can now focus on you in a healthy way.
Yeah, you think about the bulk and the clutter. And you know, now that we're in the middle of COVID, when we're not in the middle, well, yeah, I think we are unfortunately in the middle or even maybe the beginning of COVID. It's August. And a lot of, people's routines are disrupted in a significant way. And a lot of people are seeing, really exposing the painful reality of the 24-hour news cycle and how much time people spend screen time. Look at that screen time. Go right now, pause this podcast and go look at what's your screen time. How much screen time you giving away per day? And I guarantee you that you are not any more informed. You're not any more educated. You're wasting your time on articles that aren't going to do jack to help you better improve your life. Great point. Let's get to number 7. This is one of my favorites because I hated this next one so much, and it later came to be my salvation.
It's interesting. We just got done talking about decluttering your life, right? So now that we got all the bulk cut out of your life, now it's about how do we create structure? And here's the funny part about this, guys. And this is a lesson I'm recently learning right now, guys, okay? So mind you, I've been in recovery now for 7 years. I've been coaching now for 5 years. And here's a new thing that I'm learning here, guys, is that I thought I had to, include so many more healthy habits with the replacement of the bad habit. And don't get me wrong, that was part of the work. But what I didn't realize in creating the structure in my life was that I didn't know what was most important. And it's not about the structure of your relationships with your family that you might have lost. I know it seems like, what are you talking about, Coach G? That should be the first thing on my list, is recreating this wonderful life with my family. No, that shouldn't be first on your list. It's not about reestablishing yourself in a socioeconomic way. Like, do you go back and get the better job? Do you move into the good neighborhood again? Are you, doing all these things? And you're like, well, yeah, Coach G, I mean, you need money, and, you should be making more money because you got rid of the habits. So you should be more productive, but that shouldn't be first on your list. What I had to learn the hard way, man, about what had to be first on your list, and that had to be self-love and self-care. And believe it or not, the reason why that needs to be paramount is because for a lot of us here on this call, we've been dealing with this compulsive behavior around sex and porn for literally decades. I want you to think about that. It's been decades. Like, I will throw myself on the chopping block for you guys. I'm going 3 decades plus here. Some of you guys I've talked to in the program, 4 decades, 5 decades, right? The reality is that behavior, as much as you don't want to admit it, was your version of unhealthy self-love. Yeah, I know it sucks. You're like, what do you mean? Now, that's how I showed I loved myself when I was destroying my family and I did these. It was. We'll help you talk about that more when you get a coach. Wink, wink. But the reality is you spent decades loving yourself in the most unhealthy ways imaginable to you. Now you got to rediscover and recreate how to love yourself in a healthy fucking way. You got to figure out what the hell that even looks like. What is self-care going to look like when before your self-care was getting 3 hours of sleep, waking up, guzzling down like 3 cups of coffee, running out the door, barely doing hygiene except for brushing your teeth and maybe brushing your hair. You got sleep in your eyes. You get home, you're exhausted. You cram down some bullshit fast food. You lay up on the couch, probably grab a beer or something, and then you're back into your acting out cycle. Like, that's been your self-care and your self-love. And now you don't have that around you. So it's not about, no, get the better job. And no, it's not about build my family and get my family back. No, now you need to figure out, how the fuck do I love myself? Because you can't go back to your family without knowing how to love yourself, because you won't accept the love they're going to give you.
You can't give what you don't have.
Exactly. Or you can't, it's hard to receive what you don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. It's one thing if you're broke to be given money, but guess what you're going to do with the money if you're broke? You're going to spend it. But if you come from a wealth mindset, think about that. And someone, even if you're flat, disgusted broke, but if you got a wealth mindset and someone gives you $5, your first thought isn't, how do I spend the $5? It is, how do I use this $5 to turn into $10? How do I build it into that fashion? Guys, you got to relearn that now. You got to learn to do that with self-love and with self-care. You're wondering why you're in these horrible relationships and why you react with anger and avoiding and resentment to people that show you genuine love, because you don't know how to love yourself. You gotta create that right structure. Focus on what's most important: self-love, self-care.
Yeah, so important. Thank you, George. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculously important. What do we got next?
Next up, guys, listen. You got to learn how to connect your faith to your recovery. Now, listen, everybody's going to have their own different faith. I'm pretty sure we all have something, whether it's faith in yourself, faith in nature-based. You look at spirituality different. Here's what I know for me is that I went to a lot. I told you guys earlier in the call, look, yes, I'm a Christian. Whole nine. My mom's a minister. I've been in church for the better part of my life, and it was nobody literally in church that I was able to discuss what was going on with me that I got real information from. And when I came into the Mindful Habit, as much as this is a secular program, it actually gave me the tools that I can now use to start connecting more with my faith. But guess what? That's part of my walk. Again, it goes back to why I say you got to get yourself a recovery coach. We've been there. We're here to share our lives. We're here to share the lessons learned. And I know for a fact that there's a huge population of spiritual, faith-based men that struggle very differently, because you got to be real about this. If you go to church, you believe in God, you're here to faith, you're a Muslim, you're an Orthodox Jew. Let's be very honest about this right now, guys. It's hard as shit to be open about this behavior with your faith. Like, you could go to your church, your synagogue, your temple right now and say, I'm a drug addict. They will surround you and funnel you right into the right resources. You could say, I'm an alcoholic. They will surround you and funnel you right into the right resources. You walk in and say, look, I'm a sex addict, I'm a porn addict. They're going to look at you crazy. They're going to want to have a private meeting with you. They're going to question you around, hey, well, did this happen as a child and this, and have you prayed? And let's be honest, man, until this stops becoming such a taboo thing within the church, you got to find the right program outside of it. But even within that right program, you still need to be able to know, how am I connecting my worlds right now? You know, part of recovery is where you get to live transparently, and every part of your life should seamlessly connect with the other parts of your life. So now you got to say, how do I really connect this? And you got to get some time to talk to somebody about that. If you don't get coached for nothing else, get coached well enough to be like, listen, I believe this, grew up believing this, I'm confused about this because I did this. And this part right here is going to be an eternal trigger for me if I don't get some clarity on it. You have to be able to speak with somebody. If that's you, if you're that guy that's like, look, I'm a Christian, I've been in church, I'm a Muslim, you know, I've been praying, or I'm an Orthodox Jew, you know, and I'm specifically referencing them because I know some very stringent lines around sexuality as it pertains to these organizations and into these religious groups. So if that's you, listen, that's the reason why you want to get a coach. I know what it's like to not just be a Christian, but also have to work with somebody one-on-one with their Muslim faith, with their Orthodox Jew faith, and all the precepts that go into it, and help them to find some identity for themselves in their beliefs, as well as not feel the shame that comes from their religious beliefs and recovery in this world.
Yeah, we do so much repair work around religious shame. And unlike George, I'm not a religious man. And like George, I take great pride in helping men build their spirituality and create a spirituality, use their spirituality to so they could lean on it and in a healthy way without the legacy of shame that so many people bring into their program. What's next? Unmute.
Sorry about that, brother. I get yelled at on group calls about that sometimes. All right, number 9, identify and break the 4 U's. What are the 4 U's? Well, that's your doubts, your fears, your anxieties, and your unhealthy patterns. Listen, here's the deal. Even if you think right now you know what your fears, your doubts, anxieties, and unhealthy patterns from your childhood are, I guarantee that by the time you get done sitting down with somebody who's lived this life and is here to help people, that they're going to uncover if not the same amount or twice as many fears, doubts, anxieties, and unhealthy patterns in your life. And it's hard, guys, for you to be able to sit down and look at some automated program and say, okay, well, let me list my fears. Because I promise you, the majority of your fears, your doubts, and your anxieties are going to revolve around your current situation. You're going to fear the loss of your job, fear the loss of your family, fear the loss of income. You doubt if you're going to break out of or be successful with recovery. You have anxiety around doing this program. All of it is wrapped around the current situation. Guys, look, you had fears as a child that you never got past. You have doubts from your adolescence you never got past. You have anxieties that were created somehow in your childhood that you never got past. And most importantly, each of us have seen some unhealthy shit in our past that, believe it or not, as much as we said, I will never do that, and that can never exist in my home, and I will never behave like that, we ended up copying that pattern somehow our own way. I swore up and down that I was not going to be the guy that was out having 1,000 affairs with my wife and children outside of the marriage and be this raging crackhead, alcoholic like my dad. But lo and behold, George is a porn addict, and George is a sex addict, and George is popping prescription pills, and then George has to deal with alcohol later in life. But because it didn't look like my dad, I thought that I was breaking the pattern. No, man, I was repeating unhealthy patterns. It may look different in my life, but it's still a pattern that I was repeating. Fears, my doubts, my anxieties, they didn't all come around because I got caught, because of the discovery, because of the disclosure. There's some shit in my past that I've been dealing with that I'm just now realizing that, you know what, well, not just now, but I've grown to this space of being like, wow, I can't just stay stuck in the area of the quote unquote addiction. I got to go back deeper because there's some other stuff there I haven't unpacked. And I got to sit down with somebody to help me unpack it. Heck, I had that talk with Craig not too long ago, earlier this year, helping me unpack a lot more of the discoveries that I'm coming across, guys. But you need to sit down with someone to help you break your 4 U's, your fears, your doubts, your anxieties, and your unhealthy patterns.
Yeah, there's always an input that creates the output. And so the number of people come to us, about 50% have already done a fair amount of therapy, and there's a group of guys that fall into these categories. Either they are sick and tired of doing what's called family of origin work. They're sick and tired of or looking back. Or the other type of guy, when they went to their therapist and the therapist tried to direct them backwards, hey, this is bullshit. What am I doing looking back? Why is this valuable to me? I'm supposed to be moving forward. And the reason is what George just talked about, and it's how I summarize it in my statement. There is always an input that created the output. And when you start to examine your bad habits, and you start to look at your bad habits as trained, conditioned responses, when you start to look at that moment when your wife said something to you and you snapped and you lost control, or when you're driving and you get angry, or when you get triggered and you sneak off to do whatever it is you're going to do, we don't look at it like a disease. No, we look at them like habits. Those habits are trained, conditioned responses. And so much of our training, literally how we experience the world, how we receive it and respond to it, so much of that wiring happens to us in childhood. And it's fascinating and just awesome to see guys uncover these patterns that George is talking about to help them identify and break the 4 U's. Mission critical. If that's not on your list, it needs to be. What do we got? Last but not least.
Last but not least, brother, listen, you need us to help you create the roadmap to your passions, true identity, healthy self-love, and healthy self-care. I know I talked about self-love and self-care earlier, guys, but listen, breaking the habit, if you will, literally is like step 1. And most people look at that and say, well, you know what? The habit is done with, so I can move on with my life and I'll get back to where things are. But here's the deal, guys, that you're going to learn is that you have to literally create a new lifestyle to be successful in your recovery. And that means re-evaluating what exactly are my passions and who the hell am I pursuing them. You're going to learn to get rid of so many labels and roles that you've adopted, that you've taken a hold of over the past, I don't know how long. And now you got to figure out who the heck is John, who the heck is Steve, who the heck is Mike, who the heck is Carrie, who the heck is Amanda, who the heck is Christy. Both sides. You still got to figure all this kind of stuff out. And trust me, you need someone there with you, because the places you're going to have to go for your passions now, they're going to stretch you outside of your own box that you've been living in for, again, decades. So some of these dreams, some of these places, some of these passions you have, you're literally going to need to work with somebody to sit down to uncover them once you stop the behavior. It's why people are still a part of our program after they've gone into sobriety and recovery for months, if not years on end. They're still refining their passions. They're still understanding and unpacking their actual real identity. They're still coming to us being like, wow, I learned this about myself. And guess what? I feel so much self-love when I perform this and when I do this. And I learned a new way to provide myself self-care. I looked at it one way before, and now I'm doing it like this now. And it's not a mystery that these things are coming out on our calls or in our one-on-one sessions.
Yeah.
Versus being put into the forum. You got to sit down, get to the space of being able to communicate with somebody to help us get you to this next spot.
And just to highlight that point on a roadmap, that's what the Mindful Habit System is. It is a very structured, disciplined program. And in fact, in the beginning, if I'm doing my job, I ask questions to, again, attract people and repel. And I don't mean that in a negative way or in a bad way. It's finding people who are going to resonate with, yes, please tell me what I need to do. I want a structured path. And you need a structured path. Think that there's no other area in your life. Think of your professional life, loosey-goosey, all over the place, no structure, no discipline, no infrastructure. Your professional life would be a disaster without that roadmap to your passions. These things don't happen by accident. They happen as the result of structure, the result of discipline, and a plan that moves you from this place of low self-control, low emotional intelligence, unhealthy sexuality, no concept of sustainability, to self-control, self-awareness, healthy sexuality, and sustainability. There's literally specific things you can do to create that result in your life. And that's what this program is. George, bring us home, brother.
Listen, guys, we just covered the 10 reasons. Now, listen, there's probably something different for you. There might be something that didn't get mentioned here. You're like, you know what? This is why I need to work with somebody. Or maybe we touched on exactly why you need to be with us and why you need to work with somebody. So here's the deal. Underneath of this, guys, in the description below, there's going to be a link to join the Mindful Habit online group coaching program. If you're looking for coaching in a different direction, there's also going to be a link. Hit me a link, pick some time, jump on my calendar. Let's figure out what type of coaching might be best for you. End of the day, guys, at least have the conversation. Have the conversation around the online program. Have the conversation around one-on-one coaching. Figure out what that looks like, what works best for you, and which one of these 10 areas you're going to need that kind of help with, all right? So again, set some time on the calendar. We can have a free talk. Let me know which one of the 10 things would best help you in your recovery, or click the link, jump into it because you're a person of action. You already know that you need to receive some coaching, and you'll see the link for our online group coaching program down below.
Yeah, thank you, George, so much. And whatever you do, listen, if you connect with us, obviously, we want to work with you, and do something. You know, pardon the cliche, but life is too short to suck. And here's a really important reality. There are some people who don't need coaching right now. And listen, if that's you, that doesn't make you bad. That makes you smart for realizing, wait, I need the slow and steady hand of a therapist. Maybe you're having trouble, like serious trouble functioning in your day-to-day. Maybe you're struggling with another addiction, and those two addictions together are really wreaking havoc in your life. Maybe you're struggling with a co-occurring mental health disorder, and you need the steady hand of a local therapist. So whether it's us, whether it's another program out there, whatever, we do what we do, and we try to find people who are going to resonate. So if you connect, if you resonate with this approach, if you get value from what you've heard on this program, click on those links, reach out, feed the right wolf inside you, and embrace your power of choice. Thank you, George.
Brother, no problem at all. Thank you again, once again, for allowing me here on the podcast. Look forward to talking to you guys soon. See you in a couple weeks.
Make it great, brothers.